these randoms keep getting jobs? Don't worry about it. I'm going to say, I can't wait to say it. I love it. I love it. Go.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the NotBland Show, and I'm your host, Dujane Bland. Today, we're going to have a really good show talking about drag racing. We're going to have Brian Lohnes in the building here, and he's going to be with us at about 7:15. And it's just been one heck of a race season, right? We're just coming into the first part of the second quarter of the regular season. We've had so many different winners throughout this early regular season, and it has been compelling and very eye-catching and staying glued to your seat type of action. How is your drag race bracket bonanza doing? Where are you placed at among the millions? Probably not millions, but I had to do that. Where are you guys at in that? I am 13th currently in the world. Really would like to get a win this upcoming week, as there's going to be some really big news coming out of Drag Race Bracket Bonanza. Major company coming on as a sponsor. Going to be some real cool stuff, and it is a company that is already within the NHRA. That news should be dropping sometime tomorrow, noonish Central Time. So if you're not already subscribed to the email, I would go over and get subscribed to the email. This is huge. And I'm not joking. I'm not downplaying this at all. This is big news, huge for our beloved Drag Race Bracket Bonanza. And it just means better things and more cooler things for you to win. And me to win. So I'm excited about it. Like I said, get locked into the email. It will be dropping here tomorrow. We've got some cool cars coming out for Chicago. Look at this thing. My guy, Buddy Hull, with the sweet classics. That's nice. It looks like the stuff just looks edible, and I'm a candy guy, so that's a really cool car. I'm really hoping that this upcoming next weekend, the 17th there at the Route 66 Snats, that we actually have him go some rounds and get to display this car a little while longer. Absolutely cool stuff for them. And we're going to have somebody that we've been looking for quite some time. Looks like it was about this time he was going to debut anyway, and that is Chris King, coming out here with the Howard's Cams competition products. Excuse me. I'm excited for him. They have some of the best equipment. We talked to him earlier in the preseason of the show when we were able to be on Wednesdays during the preseason part of the show. And, they obviously had some other sponsors that were going to be on the car. But, you always have to pivot in this business. Things move and change quickly, but they're able to have a sponsor for this next weekend's race. And they have some of the best parts and pieces in the business. We're going to talk to him on the Competition Plus Power Hour at 9 o'clock. He'll be on at 9:05. So come on over, join us there, and we'll have a great conversation with him as well. Let's take a look at the comments here. We've got Lonnie in the building here. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. He also says, my drag race bracket bonanza status is currently at thank you for playing. We have some complimentary gifts for you on your way out. Yeah. Dave says 171. That's not bad, though. It really isn't. Because in an instant, things can be turned upside down on its head pretty quickly in this game. If you guys even looked at and were following yourself between this 4-wide cup deal, it wasn't easy. And there were times that I was way down the ladder and was able to get up in the 80s, so to speak, and be able to, salvage something. It wasn't the best of things. So we did the best that we could. So I can't complain the overall, though. I'm enjoying the overall being 13th. I try not to worry about it too much, right? You don't want to focus and overcomplicate the thing. And sometimes you can get inside your own head and complicate things, and you start overthinking it, and then you start tanking. So sometimes you just got to go with your gut and do what you have to do. Lonnie says, wow, I'm old enough to remember the Howard Cam special, the top fueler in 1963 Winter Nationals. Hey, some history there, guys. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. And it's cool to see sponsors like that being able to come back. And Chris King is one heck of a guy to be a part of. He doesn't do anything halfway. He is always doing everything 100%. And that's why they've taken their time to debut as well. Sponsorships, of course, but they also want to be prepared and ready. He kind of reminds me of a guy like TJ Zizzo. There's not a time that these guys are not ready. They can show up at any race and compete and not come out and look like this is the first time they've put things together. They always come in prepared, and Chris King's going to do the exact same thing. Going to come in, he's going to be prepared. He wants to go and put down successful laps and not, blow things up and hurt things. So I'm looking forward to that. Mike says, sucks everybody has to do their podcast on Tuesday night. I get why, but it sucks. I'm here for 23 more minutes. Then I have to shake and bake time. Hey, man, that's why we can watch it later. Yeah, it's tough, especially with my NFL schedule coming up as the season progresses. This is the best time to be able to get guys like Brian Lohnes. They're on travel, man. Like next week, if I had to get him next week, I could get him next week because it's on a Tuesday possibly. They travel mostly on Wednesday unless we know Brian does a lot of cool stuff. So sometimes that may not be possible, but it is a lot easier to get drivers and other media members on a Tuesday. Yeah, quick point. I'm stumbling here. My tongue got fat. Racing and picking the low-hanging fruit. Yeah, sometimes you got to pick the upsets. You got to gamble a little bit. And I've learned that in this whole thing. Without further ado, though, we have our guy in the building. He is one half of your Fox broadcast. He is your play-by-play announcer. That isn't the only thing either. He's all over the place. He gives you some good nuggets and good history if you're following him. It is my favorite guy on the planet, Mr. Brian Lohnes.
How you doing, man? Thanks for having me on. This is great. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. It's been one heck of a season, hasn't it? I mean, we're into the second quarter of our regular season, and we've had upwards of 18 plus different winners.
Yeah.
We've had all the things that you would want throughout a season, the nice close races, the heavy competition, the little guys coming out and looking at the big guys and like, yep, you're not better than me. I'm still going to run my race and I'm going to beat you. And I do.
Yeah. Listen, Terry Totten is the guy, right? I mean,
yes.
To me, one of the great stories this season was what Terry Totten was able to do out in Vegas. And that's been a culmination of just years of hard work. But yeah, to your point, as much as we talked about Top Fuel in the offseason, which I think has lived up to the hype, Funny Car is actually doing probably more than we actually expected. Like we look at, to me, look at what's going on in Funny Car and we've not been able to put together a bunch of consistency on winners on that side either. So it's really good. Really
it is. And what was surprising to me about Funny Car, it wasn't surprising. It's just, it is surprising that it actually came to life. You have guys like Terry Haddock. I kind of knew that at the beginning of the season, Paul Lee was going to be somebody that was going to be a force to be reckoned with that whole brain trust. And I really like Johnny Lindbergh as a crew chief. I knew they were going to be there, but there's a lot of the little guys, your Jason Ruperts, going rounds and being a factor in these things. It has been an exciting Funny Car class so far up to this point.
Yeah, look, Paul Lee, Tony and I talk about Paul Lee a lot on the shows, and because it's funny, you follow the sport very closely, and a lot of our fans follow it as close as they can. But when you're kind of in it every week and you start looking at some numbers, like, Paul Lee is a win waiting to happen. He's got the quickest car on average on Sundays. Really the only thing they've struggled with has been a couple of just small. They've had the weird little things happen to them on Sundays. Like in Phoenix, they had the best race car. Like in Phoenix, that was kind of their race to lose, and they lost it. But I think sooner rather than later that car is going to win a race. Paul's driving it very well. It'll run in the 80s when the conditions are there to do it. And even we've started to see a little bit of life out of Cruz's car yet. I'm not totally down. I'm not totally bought in on Cruz yet, but I'm starting to see a little bit of life there. But for me, Paul Lee is definitely the guy that is next in line for a first win in Funny Car.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Cruz seemed like it seems like he's trying to turn the corner.
Yeah.
I just need to see a little bit more as well. I haven't had an opportunity to talk to Dave Richards.
Sure.
From my vantage point and from what information that I've been gathering over the years, to me, it looks like the car makes enough horsepower. It looks like most of their issues are in the clutch, in the bell housing area, and applying that to the racetrack. Have you been able to speak with him and his team about that?
Yeah, I think it's this interesting scenario. There's an old I don't know if it's a Russian proverb or whatever, but there's a old proverb that says, we have done so much with so little for so long, we can now do anything with nothing. And that was how they raced for the majority of Dave Richards' life. And all of a sudden, they don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
And they had like a backwards adjustment. And I think they're on the good side of it now. But the reality is they had more parts and more pieces and better parts and pieces than they ever knew what to do with in their history. And so you can work with a lot of old stuff for a long time and figure out how to make it semi-okay. But when you get new stuff that requires you to change everything from the fuel system to the ignition curve, these new parts that they have, honest to God, they're actually learning how to use them. And so you're actually seeing a team that is like learning how to race with a bigger budget than they've ever had. And I think that the last two races have shown us, they've been able to qualify. They've been able to be consistent. My opinion is when we get to the hot weather months, that is a car that's going to be going rounds. They don't have the cool weather combination yet to run, let's call it a high 80 or a really low 90, but that is a solid mid 90s car that will be a solid mid to high 90s car in the heat. So it's going to be a curve for them. Randy with Skag, who's their sponsor, Versatran is a division of Skag, is committed to them, and they're going places, but it's this weird story that we really haven't seen in a long time, where a guy gets handed a budget and all these new parts, and all of a sudden he's like, what do I do now? So they're kind of figuring it out, which is neat to watch.
It is. It really is. And I thought that's pretty much what that whole thing was about. Since we are in Funny Car, what happened on Sunday never happens in our sport. Now, in the NFL, you get all kinds of breaking news. Sometimes it happens right before game day.
Yes.
But
yeah,
Bob Tasker just sits down and is like, you know what? I might not be running today because I'm going to go home because of the color of my manifolds.
It was insane. That was an insane thing because, and I do the NHRA Insider podcast and kind of told the story, but Tony and I had no idea this was at all happening. And then he just sits down to do our pre-booked interview with him. And it's like, wait, what? You know, like he starts talking and we're both looking at each other like, what the hell's going on right now? And yeah, no, that was an incredible thing. And so, you know, they had this controversy about the intake manifold and had it been modified, had it not been modified. And Bob's talking about, well, they're throwing me out because of the color. And, you know, to his credit, listen, the guy's a car salesman. He's a natural born salesman. And I think it was, and I don't begrudge him at all. I think being in the media, you have to appreciate a guy who takes an opportunity in the media to like grab the horns of a story, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's like you can't fault the guy for it.
No.
So he jumps up there and starts talking about the color of the intake, and I'm like looking at Tony like, what the hell is this guy talking about? And it was a great story, and he ends up going 338 miles an hour that afternoon. The whole thing was just nuts.
Yeah, I really loved your podcast. If you can't tell. And I've been trying to get a lot better with this year. I am definitely pro driver as a media person.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm pro player as well in the NFL. But when you sent me the message on Twitter, I looked at it and I thought about it. And I'm like, I've worked in a machine shop before.
Yeah.
I know what they do when it comes down, what bead blasting means. I've worked in the quality assurance department.
Yeah.
And when you laid it out on your podcast about the rule, I'm like, okay, well, that being said, there may not be nothing wrong with that.
Correct.
But it says it has to be placed on the car as per coming from out of the box of the manufacturer.
Yeah.
Now, my question is this: can the manufacturer do to the part what they would like to have done and then box it and send it? And is that now within rules?
Yes, that would be within the rules. Now, so there's the two-part process here. So the part that Alan Johnson is sending to Bob Tasca has been blueprinted and sent to NHRA, and that's been approved, right? So meaning that, you know, the intake manifold, what we call ports, are these little tunnels that the air flows through to the engine. And those are effectively regulating how much air is going to pass through. So those are a set size and they're a set shape. So assuming that all those things are the same, if he puts the texture on the inside of these things that Tasca had on his, and he does it in the factory, then you're legal eagle.
See, there's a way to get around everything.
Oh, absolutely.
But I understood the rule, though.
Yes.
I did. After that, I understood the rule because it opens up a Pandora's box, because now anybody in the pits can do whatever they want after their part is received, and they can do whatever they want and place it on their car. So that may need be minute and no harm, no foul, doesn't improve or is not a performance enhancer. But then someone else could say, okay, well, he got away with that. Let's see what else we can get away with. And now we're talking about performance enhancers that don't get caught. So I get the NHRA stance on that, and I do applaud them for that, because it is I don't think people realize how tough that job is as the tech department, and trying to keep everything in the playing field fair for all.
Yeah, look, to be brutally honest, I think, you know, for me, we need to take the next step as a company, in my opinion, where when something like this happens, just like NASCAR does, you hold it up in front of the camera and say, here's what the problem is.
Yes.
Here's why this is illegal, right? And so, you know, the Joey Logano glove thing, like, well, why is this glove illegal? The guy holds it up. Well, here's why the glove's illegal, because it's got a webbed thumb. So to me, that's an evolutionary step I think we still need to take. I think we eventually will take it, but I love the idea that we had this thing happen live in front of the world. I still think about it and go, man, that was so cool. And there was a lot of people internally, as you can imagine, there was a lot of people with steam coming out of their ears, like when this whole thing was going on, because like we didn't really know any better.
Right.
It was really cool. And look, like I said on my own show, if this happens on a run where the guy goes 340 miles an hour, it's a disaster, right? If Bob Tasca runs 340, they inspect the car, and 3 hours later we get a press release that says, oh, by the way, the run's been disallowed. That makes us all look bad. It makes the whole thing look bad. So I'll take a little bit of discontent on a Saturday in Charlotte over what eventually will be a historic moment in NHRA drag racing that should be on the up and up.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. It was a great moment. The fact that way it played out too was great.
Yeah.
She said, I like how the NHRA has been open and timely at races with infractions. Stop spreading rumors. I agree.
Yeah.
That is a big issue. Because it can run away pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
Some of the stuff that I was seeing just on my timeline of after what I said, I'm like, all right, man, I understand the small part of it, but now you guys are just going right off the rails.
Oh yeah, no, it's like these guys are like, hey, this is what they used to do to, this is what they did to Bob Glidden back in the 70s and the 80s. And it's like, meanwhile, Bob Glidden, this guy wins 10 championships. They're like, yeah, and NHRA screwing him at every turn. It's like the guy won 10 championships.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. So another thing I want to say too, Brian, is that for me and for us, the pro stock motorcycle stuff was old news, but it was not old news for the fans.
Right.
And I greatly appreciate the fact that you guys brought that to the forefront. And allowed the fans to get involved in that, because unless you really follow these guys, you don't really know what's been transpiring between media people and racers, and you have no idea. And it was great how that was put out there. And I think this is going to be absolutely huge to get more eyes on that class.
I agree. And the cool thing is for us, it wasn't even a discussion or a debate of whether we should bring it up. It's like, we have to bring this up. First off, these guys have been on this long extended break. So like, what are we going to do? And they've been keeping themselves fresh. Like they've been keeping themselves fresh with all this stuff that's been going on the internet. So for us to not bring it up or not encourage people to investigate a little bit coming into this event, like hit these guys up on social, read up on this, and then understand when you're watching on Sunday that this is like blood sport all of a sudden. It's like, it's freaking great. And Steve Johnson got super pissed at me and Tony, and there's people yelling at us and there's people yelling at each other. And it's like, I'll take it. I don't take any of it personally. And I certainly don't go into any of this with an agenda other than to promote the sport and other than to get people excited and interested as to what's going on.
No, and this was not manufactured. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
This was real. Yeah. This was absolutely real. And I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this stuff started in Gainesville. I was talking to Eddie and Gage and Richard about this in Gainesville. We were having discussions about this. And it's very interesting, though, because both sides have parts that they will not allow the other to have, but they'll allow them to have everything else, but those parts. So, like, what's the big deal here? But I get it, though. This is still good for them and this class, which is, by the way, I think it's going to be lights out this year and it's going to be must-see TV. Everybody trying to make play off of what happened in Gainesville. Just about everybody had a new bike. There was no testing, and they were testing during qualifying. It just didn't help. It didn't help anyone at all. Then to have that layover, it's basically like starting all over again. But they did come out of the gate swinging at the 4-wide.
Yeah, look, and I had Andrew Hines discussion with him today in the NHRA Insider, and he was pretty frank with like, hey, look, we're in good shape now. He said, but you look at where Matt was at. He's like, Matt's once Matt gets the front half of his runs figured out, he's going to be right there with us. And I don't think there is as big a disparity as a lot of people expected there would be. I think that's a good thing. I do think the one thing I want to see more out of Pro Stock Motorcycle is I want to see a couple of more dark horses kind of jump up. And we have some in there. Kelly Klontz is on a very good motorcycle. She works with Vance and Hines. Obviously, Ellie Tonglet is on a Vance and Hines kind of a rental program motorcycle. John Hall looked very good in Charlotte, and that is a Matt Smith motorcycle. So those are the names I want to be kind of, and obviously Hector Jr. and we have some experienced riders in the class. Mark Ingerson is a whole shot guy all day long. But I think, for me, the one thing I want to see out of Pro Stock Motorcycle is more intrigue on the racetrack.
Yes, I agree. And I tell you, Kelly Klontz, that's my peoples. We're from the same area.
She's awesome.
Yeah, and it's
Her and Chris
funny.
are great.
It's gonna take some time. Kelly is on Kelly time, and it takes her a little bit to get used to that bike. We were talking about it in Gainesville, but when she does, that bike is a 670 bike. I mean, they showed it before. Obviously, this is a new bike, but they've showed it. LE has shown what they can do. He can do as well. He hasn't lost a step. Like I said, it's just time. And I think the fact now we're going to have some races in succession, we're going to start to see a little bit more consistency in the pro style motorcycle class.
And look, I think it is easy, it is easy to throw rocks at a Gage Herrera. It's easy to say, well, look at this, like this is impossible. But the one thing we've not seen in drag racing in a really long time is somebody exhibiting a physical ability that is superior to everybody else. Yeah. And I don't think I'm a gullible guy. Maybe I am to a small degree, but I do believe that his advantage is in that. And as many people want to scream and yell, well, it's Vance and Hines. They have this, they have that. They have a Skunk Works with an SR-71 Blackbird in the background, and there's a guy with a nuclear reactor back there, making parts out of uranium. That's not happening. That's not happening.
Right. Exactly.
But what is happening is you have a guy that is as melded to a motorcycle as anybody has been since Dave Schultz. We put him in the same league as all these guys. We should put him in the same league as Matt Smith. We should put him in the same league as an Andrew Hines in his prime. We should put him in the same league as, again, Schultz. I mean, that's kind of who he is. When Angelle was out there tearing everybody to pieces, it wasn't some grand conspiracy theory. It was that she was just kicking everybody's ass, and that's what this guy's doing.
Exactly. And I credit Jack Corpella a lot for getting me involved in the other side of drag racing motorcycles in the XDA series and all those grudge racing type series.
Sure.
That's where I was able to see him race, and even Richard Gaston as well.
Yeah,
the guy is just one with the bike.
Yeah,
and he flows with the bike, and that's a lot. People don't realize how much that is factored in to riding that bike. It's just as important as your horsepower. You have to be one with that bike. How you sit and ride and tuck is important throughout that run to get the most out of that motorcycle.
It is the only class of any division of drag racing, not NHRA, it is in any division of drag racing on any continent on this planet. It is the only category where the human being is as important as the machine they are actually guiding. There are some, obviously we got some pretty well-fed drivers in Top Fuel and Funny Car and maybe a little less so in Pro Stock, but in Pro Stock motorcycle, these are, I would argue, the best athletes in the sport, and I would argue that they are the most intrinsically responsible for the performance of their machines. Yeah,
this is a good question. If teams went to a NASCAR format, meaning driver development programs, do you guys think it would better the professional class later on in the NHRA?
So I will answer this, and I'm not answering it in a smug way. I'm answering it in a legitimate way because of the winner's circle we saw in Gainesville.
Right.
The driver development program is called the Junior Dragster League. And so when we put 4 junior dragster champions in a winner's circle in Gainesville, meaning J.R. Todd, meaning Erica Enders, meaning Gage Herrera, and meaning Sean Langdon, that is the driver development program. Now, what's beginning to start to materialize, I think, is what John is talking about, is a mature adult driver development program. And that's what Antron Brown's Accelerate program is. And obviously Angelle is the first person involved in that. The difference here is it's not a talent jump. It's a financial jump you got to make here. Right. Yeah. So Julie Naddis talked about it. She's like, I want a championship and I'm still trying to find a deal here. Like, she didn't think the championship was worth as much as she thought it would be in terms of finding a deal. But look at the talent that's come out of A Fuel Dragster. Look at the talent that's come out of and that wants to come out of A Fuel Dragster. But really, the Junior Dragster program is the driver development program for kids. A Fuel Dragster is what's going to put you in a Top Fuel Dragster. but it's less about talent. And unfortunately, as the world works,
money.
it's more about financial. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it really is about money. Because there's no reason why Julie shouldn't be in a ride.
Right.
It's just finances is the big thing. And to be honest, when you're going from top alcohol dragster to Top Fuel, it's crowded right now. I mean,
yes.
I would not prefer to drive a funny car at all. But if I'm going to get into something and I have the ability to pay $5,000 to be in a ride, I'm going funny car racing.
Yeah.
And I don't want nothing blowing up in front of me, period.
Yeah.
I'm not that crazy.
The transformative part of what the future can and hopefully should be is, outside revenue source. In reality, let's call it a TV deal, right? So when the big sea change that could happen in drag racing is when you have enough revenue that incentivizes owners to hire drivers again. And we're not there. We haven't been there in a long time. And frankly, the sport has never been there to a degree. It's never been that sport. It's never been road racing, right? Where road racing is, and I'm not taking a shot at road racing. I'm an enthusiast of that as well. But, road racing has typically been rich guys own a cool car and they hire some guys to drive it so they can go out, win races and put their chest out and eat their caviar and stand in the booth and say, hey, my car just won a race. Drag racing and stock car racing has been to a degree that, but their revenue is immense, right? So they're in a position to put people in those cars. IndyCar is kind of a real weird outlier in that they just have a lot of wealth and they're paying guys a lot of money to drive that stuff, but there's not a lot of return coming back. Yeah. And so for us, like we're on the cusp of some really neat things, I do believe, in this sport. But the real transformative moment for Julie Natas, for so many people in that 3/4 step that wants to step up to the next level, that are marketable, that need a seat, is when that additional revenue comes in the sport, where owners go, I want you to drive this thing because I can sell you. I don't need to sell my whole operation. I need to sell you. And so that to me is the next leap we're going to make.
Yeah. I've been waiting for that, especially with Tony coming over. I've been waiting for those NASCAR-like sponsors to come over as well. But I agree with you. I think we're right on the cusp of that. There's a lot of good things going on within the sport. And it's very healthy, despite, what negative Nancy's would say, which I don't pay them any attention anymore. It is very healthy. And I do believe that the trajectory is up, and we're going to reach that point to where the floodgates will open.
Yeah, look, car count wise, you can't deny the fact we're up. We got 21 right now, and 21 Top Fuel cars and 18 funny cars set up for Chicago. We're going to have full fields in Epping for the first time in probably 10 years, which is great. Obviously, we go back to the Midwest with Norwalk and those races, and they're packed. And, that's one piece of the puzzle. That is, the car count issue is one piece of the puzzle that we're on the good side of right now, but there's a lot of stuff to work on. There is going to be a very significant announcement coming late this week, early next week, before Chicago, that is going to blow some people's minds in a great way. So, gentlemen, start your wallets. I'll just say that.
I'm loving it. Every week, there's every quarter of this season, there's been something great.
This is a good one. This is going to be a very legit good one for a lot of reasons. So it's been multiple years of work for a lot of people in the company, and it's finally happened, and you'll be hearing about it relatively shortly.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
I'm really, really happy about that. A lot of people kind of don't like the 2-team pro stock car deal. I think you do whatever you have to do to have a healthy class. And whether you like it or not, the class is thoroughly healthy. I mean, you're winning these things. The drivers are winning these things. Yeah. The cars are great, but the drivers are the ones who are actually winning these things. I mean, to see a guy like Jerry Tucker stepping up here and inserting his name into the likes of Greg Anderson and Erica Enders, and it's really cool to see Greg Greg's back. Like, that's championship Greg.
It is. And it's not like he's been hiding anywhere, but for some reason, there's that next level, right? There's like, Greg, to his own admission, and the numbers show, like, Greg got used up at some inopportune moments last year in the starting line. And it's like he showed up this year and he's like, I'll be damned if that happens to me again. Like, Greg Anderson at this point is like the guy who will press himself to be read as opposed to losing on a hole shot, which is who he was for a large portion of his career. And listen, the 2-team pro stock thing, I get why people are annoyed by it. I get why people are annoyed by, the idea that it's effectively a field of Camaros. I understand it. But at the same token, when we look at Indy cars, they're all freaking identical. And yes, one of them has a Chevy engine, one of them has a Honda engine, and they're the same displacement. And even if you were a pretty diehard engineer, if I put a blindfold on you and had you like touch them, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two motors. No. But so it's like this weird duality of, the ethical battle the sport has always fought is it the cars or the people that are famous, right? And so Wally, which was, in my opinion, a miscalculation of Wally's in the 60s, the cars were the stars, right? Yeah. Meanwhile, Bill France understood that the people were the stars. And so that is why the divergent trajectories of the two companies, in my opinion. But, if you consider yourself a multiple discipline motorsports fan and you're like, well, Camaro stock, and then you're going to tell me how good the Indy 500 is, we're going to have a discussion about that because all that stuff looks the same, and to me, that's why I like pro stock these days. I like it less for the mechanical side. I like it more for the personalities. And there are some people in there that are acerbic. There are some people in there that are cool. There are some people in there that are just pissed off half the time. And so that's kind of what I like about pro stock these days.
Yeah, I do too. It's really, really been fun to watch all of that transpire within that class. And really, to speak of all 4 of the classes, it's just so many personalities. People are starting to come to life now with some. So I have to ask you, did your gripe about how I feel about PR people being at the top end, did that get stopped this past weekend at Charlotte?
Oh, dude. So me and Tony are on a bit of a holy mission here to a degree. I hate the top end time slip printer.
I do too.
Hate it. It is anathema to what we do. It makes for bad television. Like, I don't want anybody to know what they're in. And listen, I know they got a radio on, but we have connections to their radio transmissions, and it sounds like this. So, like, when someone's like, "What I run?" So they don't know. They don't know what they freaking ran. I know they got a radio, but the thing's got a play school battery in it. I don't know how.
I love it. Love it.
Yeah, I listen. I don't know. Don Prudhomme didn't have a PR guy at the top end collecting his gloves and his helmet. John Force didn't have one until he wanted his scooter down there, and that's what started the whole thing. The whole thing began when John Force wanted his scooter delivered to the top end so he could go scoop a Jootin around the racetrack after he ran. And so, yes, I respect and understand the idea of the PR people. I know what they do. I respect their job. I'm not being disrespectful to them. But in that moment at the top end, which is the most intensive moment we have as a media group to capture, I don't need them taking the edge off that for us.
Agreed. I mean, I watch so many. I sit back and I watch the Roku channel like all the time when I have nothing else to watch because I'm just a sports guy. I don't really watch a lot of TV shows, and I get a kick out of watching the reactions of drivers because they had no idea what they ran. They didn't even sometimes they didn't even know that they won. They didn't even see the light come on.
Yeah,
and I think we got some of those reactions this past weekend where the elation of finding out you won, whatever you ran, and you get that at the top end interview, and now we got something real. Yeah, and now we have to manufacture questions to try to get some, get a surprise reaction out of them.
Yes,
it's natural, and I'm for all of that, killing all of that. There's no need for them to be up there. They have a job to do, but to me, that's not part of your job. That should be track TV to handle that, because if you want the sport to grow and you want people to be interested, the personalities can't come out if you're killing it before they ever even get to the TV spot.
It's like you're putting a fire extinguisher on it, right? And
Yeah.
whether it's good or it's bad. Like if you grab a loser, and the guy doesn't know what his light was or whatever, it's like, hey man, that was a 200s hole shot. Like you want that reaction too. You want the shoulders to drop, and you want. It all goes back. It's a basic premise, and I've said this on other shows before, but it's like, if I am a fan of Matt Hagan, let's say I'm a fan of Matt Hagan, and I work at my job and I save my money, and I'm going to take my family to a weekend at the races or a day at the races, and I've saved my money. I'm going to buy a crew shirt. I'm going to sit in the stands and I'm going to root for Matt Hagan. The last thing in the world that we need as a sport to happen is like for Matt Hagan to come out and be like, oh yeah, well, I lost. Yeah, you saw my time slip over here. Like, because that just deflate, the fans like, well, he doesn't seem to care. Like that guy's crestfallen. It's like you want the genuine emotional reaction. You want the genuine good or bad kind of real scene there. And yeah, it all goes away when you're just handing them the information before we put a camera on them.
Yeah, and this is a good one here when Galvin told Krista, what happened a few races ago. Her reaction was just awesome.
Yes, and this is good and bad. And obviously I work with Jason, a lot of respect for Jason. He does a great job. But you know what he did? He screwed us.
Right.
He totally screwed us over.
First, yeah.
Totally screwed us over.
Yeah. You guys should be first, especially with TV. TV should always go first.
When we got 750,000 people watching these shows, I kind of need them to see it first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, so what about us? Because so what about the NHRA TV thing? That's, it's a luxury.
And that's all part of it as well. And I don't want to detract from their investment. People are paying $150 a year to watch that thing. But at the same time, where it's like, if you're going to capture a genuine moment, I would prefer for the masses, the largest possible audience to see it. You know what I mean? And we were able to show it like in super slow-mo and stuff, and we got it. It was cool. I don't think he did anything wrong necessarily, but it's just like, damn, dude, I would have preferred that right here. Yeah.
Yeah. I watch both. So sometimes I'll watch NHRA TV, but I watch the broadcast to kind of, that's my reviewing of tape on how you guys look at it, how you see it. And kind of get a broader viewpoint of what's going on. A lot of people don't have that, and most people don't have NHRA TV. The Fox broadcast has to be number one, because that's where you're going to draw in most of your casual fans anyway. The people on NHRA TV are loyal. Like they'll watch the broadcast too, but they're loyal.
Yeah,
they're already in.
Yeah,
I do agree with you there, Dave. But again, those questions come out because you've killed the moment by handing them their slip well before they ever even get over to the top end person for Fox. Yeah. And it's already done. So now she has to come up with some question
what's left
to draw them up and to get try to get some kind of reaction out of them that is going to translate on TV. She's put in a bad spot a lot. And I'm talking about Amanda Busick.
Yeah, whether it's Amanda down there or Bruno or whatever, it's the same. It's the same deal. And when you can, we always want a question, but at the same time, if you can tell somebody and say, hey, whatever, you guys just went 386. Like if Jeff Deal rolls down there 397, 398. You don't even need to ask a question. You just give him the number. If he hasn't seen it yet, that's going to be an instantaneous. The guy's probably going to burst into tears.
Yes, yeah. So coming up to Chicago, this track's known to be fast.
Yeah,
we're kind of 2 weeks away from that. Really can't pinpoint the weather, but one thing's for sure, I think we're going to have some really, really good racing. I think we see some new winners.
Yeah, look, I like the fact I always love when TJ Zizzo is out. So we got the Zizzo cars back. We're going to have, I think Kyle Wurzel is back. So we get, 20 plus top fuel cars. And I think right now we're at 18 funny cars. The big difference between last year's racetrack and this year's racetrack is when NHRA went up there last year, they had to scrape like 2 years worth of abandoned rubber off the top of that thing. The safety safari is going to if they're not there right now, they'll be up there in the next day or two, already beginning to prep for next week. So there's a lot of work to go into that thing and get it turned around. But hopefully the weather pattern stays as it is, and we're about 80 degrees. It's a 4-session race. We have the Gettrex All-Star Pro Stock call-out going on, along with Mission Too Fast, Too Tasty, and every other damn thing in the world up there. So it's a great racetrack. I'm really, it's just such a good market to be in. And it's exciting. It's I know that internally a lot of excitement, like last year kind of kicked off the powder keg, and I understand that a lot of pre-sale going on right now, so people are excited about it.
Yeah, they're a good place, man. They're really in a good place with everything. What's coming up? What you got going on before the race? Anything cool?
Not a ton. Just going to crank on some, I got some YouTube stuff I've been doing recently, some historical stuff. So I'm going to keep knocking out some of that and just doing my thing. But last weekend I was at Indianapolis for the Cletus and Cars event, which is Cletus McFarland, the giant YouTube guy. And it's combined with a Lucas Oil drag racing series, top alcohol funny car and top alcohol dragster race. And it's the singular most unique event I do every year, and it's just amazing. Friday night there's this crazy stock car style race which Tony Stewart raced in. These are Crown Victorias. They're 18 Crown Victorias, and he was running the A-Fuel car, and Cletus talked to him, and so they put him at the back of the field. He jumps out, he leads. It was an 80 lap race. He led 63 of the 80 laps, starting from 19th, and on the last lap a guy kind of spun him out. But the whole event was spectacular. And, we go back and forth with this idea that, kids don't like cars. Kids don't care about cars. And, I have 2 teenage sons that love cars, and I have this event is packed with, I'm not talking about a couple thousand people. I'm talking tens of thousands of people were blowed up inside of Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park. And the majority of them were kids, because they love cars and they're there to have a good time and see burnouts and see street cars and do this whole thing. So, it really is a modern picture of the car culture, and the fact that you put A-Fuel cars and alcohol funny cars in front of these kids and they're blown away. Like most of these kids have never seen something go in the 5s and run 280 miles an hour. And we're jaded, right? You and I are jaded. Most drag racing fans are jaded. We like our 338 mile an hour funny cars and our 300 mile an hour 8th mile top fuel cars. But these alcohol cars are so impressive. And when you put them in front of a group of people that don't know any better, in a good way, they understand how impressive they are. So it was very cool.
Yeah. Great call on that, by the way. I saw the last bit of it on that final lap.
Oh yeah.
I was like, man, Tony mad. Tony's mad. He does not like to be spun out like that.
Exactly. It was cool he didn't come out of the car with his helmet in one hand and that guy's head in the other. But yeah, it was super cool. He had a lot of fun, and the fans, he's an Indiana boy, right? So the fans all went going just berserk. When we got to that last lap, that place was ready to pull the grandstands down. It was very, very cool.
That's so awesome. John says, would you like to see Pro Mod run a full season, if not 16 races?
I would like to see Pro Mod at 12 to 14 max, only because the 2 different reasons. Most of the Pro Mod racers run multiple series. So whether they're running, some of the guys run PDRA and NHRA, some of the guys run the Radial Outlaws series and NHRA. So I want to respect the fact that I don't want to take away from other things. So I want them to have the flexibility to do the other stuff. And I also understand the fact that almost none of them are equipped to run a full season of anything. They're very smart and they're very dedicated. And, you look at the work that has gone on to bring Pro Mod back from where it was just a couple years ago. We were struggling to get a handful of cars. Now we get dozens of cars at every one of these races. Justin Bond has been a great leader in that class. And so, they picked their opportunities. The reason that they went out to Phoenix, people are like, why did they go to Phoenix? Well, Phoenix was what we call a 3-class race. So the Phoenix race was Pro Stock Motorcycle, Pro Stock Car, Top Fuel, and Funny Car. I'm sorry, no, it was Pro Stock Car, Funny Car, and Top Fuel.
Yes.
So the fact that they went there, we were able to work them in to our main broadcast in the same way we would typically work in Pro Stock Motorcycle. So for them, it's a great value add. It enhances the class's visibility. It allows us to cover them in a better way. So they're doing the right things. I would like to see another couple of races a year out of them, just because I love the car so much and I'm selfish. Yeah.
Me too. I love those cars. I got a question from a viewer about your show. I know that it airs on, and I'm talking about your Insider podcast
Oh,
show
sure.
that you do during the week.
Yeah.
Is there a live version of that, or it only replays on Roku?
No, so basically you can get it on audio, like I make the show typically on Tuesdays. Usually by Tuesday afternoon, you can grab it off of, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get the stuff. Then the video version will hit YouTube, and will hit NHRA.TV, and will hit the fast channels, or what we call the fast or the AVOD channels as well. Yeah. But there's an editing process in there. So on the video side of it, they put B-roll in and do, the kind of cool stuff that I have no ability to understand how to do. But
both.
the audio one just goes up kind of same day.
Okay. Yeah. I that's what I thought. So Lonnie, that answers your question there. Sorry, buddy.
And most of the reason why, and a lot of the reason why it's never live is because I typically will have, like this morning I talked to Dan Wilkerson and Andrew Hines, but it was spread out by about 2 hours. So the ability to try to, it's tough to try to get guys, smashed into a window that would make sense.
Yeah, because they have to edit. That's why it takes a little bit to wait for.
Yep.
So, man, I appreciate you taking the time.
You bet.
It's always a blast having you on. I'm glad that I was kind of coerced into doing this whole live thing, and I really love it. It's
great, man. It's a great format.
A lot of fun. So I thank you so much, and safe travels to Chicago.
Yeah, man.
And I'll be looking forward to listening to you and Tony here in the next coming weeks, man.
One last hint. Do you do any sports gambling?
No, I've learned from friends.
I mean, I don't either.
Lose every time, and I'm like, dude, you've lost so much. Don't you think you should just stop now? Like, you have no good luck.
Well, I'm just saying, maybe in the near future you'll have an opportunity to coach him on drag racing. I'm just saying.
That would be awesome.
Wouldn't it be? Who knows?
I mean, if we're betting on pro wrestling, which is predetermined winners, right, you got to be able to bet on drag racing. I mean,
you think? You never know.
I think it's coming.
Fingers crossed.
It's got to.
Fingers crossed.
Got to, right?
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me on. It was a great show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brian. Have a good one, brother. Next time. Man, that was fun. Love talking to Brian. Historian of the sport, really passionate about the sport. And I think that's what makes his call so great, is that you have a person on the call that is on the play-by-play that is vested, from the little stuff to the big stuff. And it comes across on the screen, and it comes across when you listen. You know what I mean? Huge stuff. And definitely check out his podcast. He gets some inside things that I don't necessarily get a chance to get to sometimes. And a lot of great information that comes from them, because I love listening to Tony when he's about ready to rant. It's hilarious. Yeah. I think that's a good pick. I mean, anybody's race right now. He said, hell, we bet in the stands. Yeah. Oh, man. It is that part of it, media, you're not necessarily in the stands that much. I this year I tried to help out a little bit with Lee, Monday Morning Racer, a little bit with content, but you don't get to see those things. But man, I love those moments where people are trading $5, $10. You got the guy who's holding it. You're picking right lane, left lane. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on down there, Dave W. You're right about that. You're definitely right about that. You say you need an over or under on who takes. Look, I'm taking the under, because I think exactly what we talked about earlier is exactly what's going to happen now. I don't know if any of you got a chance to listen to Brian's previous Insider podcast on that particular issue, but basically it's to help that the fuel doesn't stick. It doesn't stick to that manifold, and it allows it to drop down. And it makes sense, right? Because if it's a little bit rough, whether it's air passing through, whatever, most people in a machine shop, or when you're talking about performance and you're talking about certain things in resistance, you don't want that resistance. You don't want anything to be able to grab and hold on to it and stick to it. You want smooth. So I think that's what's going to happen here. I think we're going to have them come from the manufacturer already done that way. He said it would be cool if Tony won the weekend his dad. Yes. Oh, man, that would be fantastic. Icing on the cake. Icing on the cake right there. And they have every ability to do it. I think Tony, the Sarge, is in his best position right now. Has one of the best cars that's out there. They've been quite consistent. It's gonna be fun. That would be a really good story. I'm all about the story, Nicole. You know that. Just don't be like, yeah. Oh man, look. I kind of I don't know if you guys follow NFL that much, but let's see. Why does his name fleet me now? But so it was a young wide receiver for the Falcons who played for the Jaguars this past season, and I don't know why I can't think of his name because he's my wide receiver in my dynasty league. But he was off, out on IR, and they dinged him for betting on games. And I'm like, he's not playing. He's not even affecting the game. Why does it matter? But yes, no one wants to be doing that. It becomes a conflict of interest. So, fun fact, the first DSR double happened in Joliet in 2003. Stat Guy does it again. Interesting stuff. Dave has a lot of it. And that is a cool stat. How cool it would be that it would happen next week. And Tony would be able to get a win. Now, it would be a DSR thing, but again, it'd be a cool thing in honor of his dad. And that would be extremely cool. I'm all for the feel-good story. You know that. A lot of fun. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the show. Backlash, WWE Backlash, amazing. And it's not because of the card. Us in the United States have to do better. We do. The crowd was absolutely amazing. Maybe you can catch some clips of it, but they were singing almost every wrestler's music that came out. They were loud before the show ever even started. Triple H thought they were going to run out of gas before the show started. That's how loud and enthused they were. It was that's what made the show. It really did. Decent card, but man, France did it the right way. Absolutely fun to watch. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate all of you who tuned into this show. It is very, very overwhelming, the amount of support, the great support that I have had for this show. The newcomers, I thank you. The new followers, I thank you for your support. Like and share the show. Go over to the NotBland Show YouTube page and subscribe. More subscribers we have, it'll be easier for us to get sponsors in the future. And that way you stay locked in and hit the bell, and you get the hit the bell so you can get the notifications when we go live. We will be going live sometimes other than Tuesday, maybe to talk NFL sports or NBA playoffs. So stay tuned. Again, this has been the NotBland Show. I'm Dujane Bland, and we're out of here.